Right now, pause this video and open your task manager. Click the Performance tab. Scroll to the bottom. Is there a row you don't recognize? A graph that wasn't there last year? I'm not talking about CPU, GPU, or memory. I'm talking about three letters that most people have never had a reason to look for: NPU. If it's sitting there, your computer already belongs to a group most owners don't even know exists. If it isn't, stick around because Microsoft has been quietly splitting Windows 11 into two separate operating systems running on the same install disk, and the machines on the losing side are locked out of a list of features that keeps getting longer every few months. This isn't speculation. It's written into Microsoft's own documentation, it's running on real machines today, and it hinges on a piece of hardware that almost nobody who bought a laptop before 2024 actually has. If you're new to Nolan Tech, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because we upload new tech videos regularly that help you stay ahead of exactly this kind of thing. Here's the split in plain terms. Microsoft now recognizes two categories of Windows 11 hardware: machines with a neural processing unit strong enough to be called Copilot Plus, and machines without one. And the feature list reserved for that first group isn't some far-off roadmap item. It's shipping and updates landing on real PCs this year, and every few months the pile gets bigger. To understand how we got here and why this matters a lot more than a spec sheet footnote, we need to rewind to the moment this decision was actually made. Because it's less a story about silicon and more a story about leverage, running the kind of math that powers artificial intelligence. Not spreadsheets, not video rendering, not general computing. Pattern recognition, language processing, local AI inference, meaning your computer running an AI model without shipping your data off to a server somewhere. Your regular processor can technically do this work too. So can your graphics card. But both of those chips already have full-time jobs. Ask your CPU to quietly run an AI model in the background while you've got a browser open, a document being edited, and a video call running, and it has to slice its attention across everything at once. Something gives. The NPU exists specifically to take that AI workload off the CPU and GPU completely, running it on hardware built for nothing else, using a fraction of the power those other chips would burn doing the same job. In theory, that's a smart piece of engineering. The problem isn't the concept. It's the bar Microsoft set to unlock it. To count as a Copilot Plus PC, your NPU has to hit at least 40 tops. Trillion operations per second, a way of measuring how much AI math a chip can chew through every second. 40 trillion operations per second sounds abstract until you compare it to what was actually shipping in stores. Most Intel laptops sold through 2023 and well into 2024 had NPUs rated around 13 tops, not 40, 13. Microsoft set the requirement at more than triple what the market's dominant chip maker was actually delivering, and that single gap explains almost everything that happened next. When Copilot Plus officially launched, Intel had nothing that qualified. Qualcomm, on the other hand, walked straight through the door. The first wave of Copilot Plus laptops in the middle of 2024 ran on Qualcomm's Snapdragon X Elite and Snapdragon X Plus chips, both hitting 45 tops out of the gate. AMD followed not long after with its Ryzen AI 300 series, pushing up to 50 tops. Intel, the company that sells more laptop processors than anyone else on the planet, didn't catch up until CES 2026, when it finally announced the Core Ultra Series 3, codenamed Panther Lake, with a 50 tops NPU built in. For roughly a year and a half, if you bought a mainstream Intel laptop, you were buying hardware that could not run a single Copilot Plus feature, full stop. There was one narrow exception. Intel's Core Ultra 200V lineup, chips like the Core Ultra 7 258V and Core Ultra 9 288V, which did land in the 40 to 48 tops range and technically qualified. But those chips showed up in a small number of premium, expensive laptops that most everyday buyers never came close to purchasing. So what's actually behind that wall? This is where it stops being a spec sheet argument and starts being about what your computer can and can't do the moment you open it tomorrow. The headline feature, and the most controversial one by a wide margin, is Windows Recall. Microsoft's own CEO described it as giving your PC a photographic memory. The way it works is genuinely wild when you first hear it. Windows continuously takes screenshots of your screen, runs those screenshots through an AI model on your NPU, indexes everything it sees, and lets you search your entire digital history using plain conversational language. Type something like, "Find that spreadsheet with the blue chart from last Tuesday," and Windows can locate it, not because the file is named anything useful, but because it literally remembers seeing it on your screen. All of that indexing happens locally, on device, using the NPU, without sending the screenshots to Microsoft servers. But Recall isn't a light feature. It demands an NPU rated at 40 tops or higher, a minimum of 16 gigabytes of RAM, at least 256 gigabytes of solid-state storage, BitLocker encryption, TPM 2.0, and Windows Hello authentication, all active simultaneously. Miss even one of those boxes and Recall simply doesn't install. There's no workaround, no compatibility mode, no half version. It's either fully there or completely absent. Next is Click to Do, a contextual action menu that pops up when you screenshot or select something on screen. Highlight a phone number and it offers to dial it. Select a text in another language and it translates it instantly right there. Select an image and it can analyze what's inside it. All of this processing happens on the NPU, locally, with no round trip to the cloud. The code for Click to Do actually ships to every Windows 11 machine running recent versions, but it only wakes up and becomes usable on hardware that clears the NPU bar. Everyone gets the update. Only some people get the feature. Then there's Windows Studio Effects, a suite of AI-driven webcam tools. Automatic framing keeps you centered as you move around, the same trick your phone camera pulls off. Background blur removes clutter behind you without needing a green screen. Eye contact correction subtly shifts your gaze on camera so it looks like you're looking directly at the lens even when you're reading notes off to the side. Portrait lighting adjusts how your face appears to be lit in real time, and voice focus isolates your voice from background noise. All of it runs continuously on the NPU. On a machine that doesn't qualify, none of these options even appear in your settings menu. They're not grayed out. They're not there at all. Semantic Search takes regular file search and gives it actual comprehension. Standard Search matches file names and metadata against whatever you type. Semantic Search understands meaning. Type the spreadsheet I used to plan the Florida trip, and Windows can find it, even if the file is named something meaningless like Q2 planning by3 on final.xlsx with zero mention of Florida anywhere in it. That kind of contextual indexing runs continuously on the NPU in the background, and again, it needs that 40 tops floor to function. There's also a batch of creative AI tools locked behind the same wall. Co-Creator inside Microsoft Paint lets you type a description and generate an image directly in the app using the NPU. Restyle Image in the Photos app applies artistic transformations to your pictures with one click. Automatic Super Resolution in Games attempts to upscale lower resolution frames into sharper output in real time using AI inference. All three. Copilot plus exclusive. And finally, live captions with real-time translation. Live captions themselves, transcribing whatever audio is playing through your speakers into on-screen text, work on a much wider range of hardware. But add real-time translation across more than 40 languages while it transcribes, and that's an NPU-only capability. If you're finding this useful so far, take a second to hit like and subscribe to Nolan Tech. It genuinely helps the channel keep producing deep dives like this one. Now here's the part that's been quietly making people furious. On machines that do qualify for Copilot Plus, that new NPU counter sitting in your task manager isn't just a number for reference. Users have been watching it move on its own. People have reported their NPU spiking to over 80% usage in short, repeating bursts, every dozen or so seconds like clockwork, even with Recall turned off, Click to Do disabled, and every visible Copilot feature closed. The culprit is a background process most people had never heard of before checking. A workload manager that keeps the NPU active on a loop, regardless of what you've switched off in settings. During those spikes, RAM usage can jump by several gigabytes, sometimes nearly doubling from its resting state in a matter of seconds. You can end that process manually in Task Manager and watch memory usage drop right back down, but it restarts itself automatically the next time you reboot, no matter what you've disabled. That's not a glitch, that's how it's built to behave. And it's the single most concrete, verifiable reason people are opening Task Manager right now and finding something running that they never agreed to. To understand why this matters beyond one annoying background process, you need the bigger picture. Windows 10 officially stopped receiving security updates on October 14, 2025. Every machine still running it is now operating without patches for newly discovered vulnerabilities, which is a completely legitimate reason to move to Windows 11. Microsoft knows that pressure is real, but upgrading to Windows 11 on hardware without a qualifying NPU means landing on an operating system with a growing list of features you can see referenced but can't use, alongside background processes consuming your resources in service of an AI stack that will never actually deliver anything to you. You're paying the performance cost of a system you don't get the benefit of. And a lot of people are in exactly that spot. As of late last year, AI-capable laptops, meaning any device with an NPU at all, regardless of whether it even came close to 40 tops, made up less than half of new laptop sales across Europe. That means a majority of laptops sold recently didn't even have the hardware category in question, let alone hardware that clears Microsoft's bar. Desktops are in worse shape still. For a long stretch, there was barely a qualifying desktop processor on the market at all, with AMD's Ryzen AI 400 series eventually becoming one of the first genuine Copilot Plus desktop chips. Before that arrived, desktop users were locked out entirely. no matter how powerful their machine was in every other respect. But here's a twist that changes how you should read this whole situation. A well-known Windows researcher who goes by Albacore discovered that recall, the headline feature that's supposed to require an NPU, can actually run without one on ARM-based hardware. The screen capture works. The indexing works. It's slower without dedicated AI hardware doing the heavy lifting, but the code doesn't technically demand an NPU to operate. Albacore noted the same logic should apply to Intel and AMD machines too, though the AI model packages Microsoft shipped to manufacturers were built specifically for ARM chips, so the workaround stayed limited to that hardware family. Tech outlets covering the discovery asked the obvious question. If these features can technically run without an NPU, even if a bit slower, why draw a hard requirement that locks out most of the installed base? The most convincing answer isn't a technical one, it's commercial. And this isn't Microsoft's first time pulling this exact lever. The original hardware requirements for Windows 11 itself, particularly the mandatory TPM 2.0 security chip and the strict CPU generation cutoffs, instantly turned millions of perfectly functional Windows 10 machines into officially unsupported hardware. Microsoft framed it as a security decision. The practical result was that a massive number of people needed new hardware just to stay on a supported operating system, which happened to give PC sales a real boost. Now, with the NPU requirement, a similar pattern is playing out. Setting the bar at 40 tops doesn't just exclude genuinely old machines, it shuts out hardware sold as recently as 2023 and the first half of 2024. Machines that are nowhere close to obsolete and handle every other task without breaking a sweat. When one outlet directly asked Microsoft whether it planned to eventually fold NPU requirements into the official Windows compatibility list, the same way TPM 2.0 became mandatory, the company's response was that it had nothing to share. From a company that has already redrawn that line once with real financial consequences for millions of people, that kind of non-answer doesn't exactly build confidence. The public reaction has been loud, specific, and hard to ignore. When one of Microsoft's senior Windows executives posted online about the company's long-term vision of Windows evolving into what he called an agentic OS, the post pulled in hundreds of thousands of views, and the replies turned so overwhelmingly negative that the executive eventually locked the comments entirely. Around the same time, a nickname for the direction Windows was heading started spreading across social platforms, used to describe an operating system that felt increasingly stuffed with AI prompts nobody asked for, in Notepad, in Paint, in File Explorer, and right-click menus everywhere, often with unclear purpose and minimal explanation. The frustration wasn't really about AI as a concept. It was about an operating system that started to feel less like a tool you control and more like a product using you to promote itself. And here's where the story gets genuinely interesting, because Microsoft appears to have heard it. Reporting from early this year revealed that Microsoft is actively working to pull back or streamline Copilot integrations across built-in apps, including Notepad and Paint, and has reportedly paused plans to add further Copilot buttons to other core apps. But the most striking part of that reporting is what it reveals about recall specifically. Internally, sources say Microsoft now views recall, the exact feature that justified the entire Copilot Plus hardware category and its price premium, as something that has failed to land the way the company intended. Rather than killing it outright, the company is reportedly exploring reworking the concept, possibly under a completely different name. That's not a minor tweak. That's a company that staked an entire hardware category's identity on one feature, watched it get hammered by privacy backlash, and is now quietly reconsidering whether the bet paid off. It's worth understanding why the backlash was so severe in the first place. When Recall was first unveiled, security researchers found that the initial build stored every screenshot in a completely unencrypted local database, meaning any malware already on your machine could potentially read your entire visual history of everything you'd ever done on that computer. Messaging apps built specifically to be private, like Signal, added settings by default to block Recall from capturing their chat windows on Windows. A couple of major browser and ad blocking tools followed with similar protections. Microsoft delayed the full rollout by nearly a year to fix the security holes, eventually shipping it with proper encryption, an opt-in default instead of opt-out, mandatory Windows Hello authentication, and strictly local processing. But by the time that safer version actually shipped, the damage to public trust was already done, and adoption stayed low. There's one more layer to this that reframes what the NPU requirement even means going forward. At CES 2026, the show floor was packed with Copilot Plus laptops from every major manufacturer, finally clearing that 40 TOPS line, Intel included, after arriving late with its new Core Ultra Series 3 chips. The industry had finally caught up to Microsoft's number. But at almost the exact same moment, Microsoft was quietly moving the goalposts. Its newer AI runtime framework, which replaced the original Copilot runtime that strictly required an NPU, explicitly supports running AI inference on GPUs and CPUs too, not just NPUs. One tech outlet summed it up perfectly. The industry finally caught up to Microsoft's requirement right as Microsoft was already moving past it. So what does all of this actually mean for you, sitting at your own computer right now? It depends entirely on which of three groups you fall into, and it's worth being precise about each one. If your machine runs an AMD Ryzen AI 300 series chip, an Intel Core Ultra 200V series chip, or a Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite or X Plus chip, you're on genuine Copilot Plus hardware. Your task manager shows an NPU graph, and you have access to recall, click to do, translated live captions, studio effects, and the image generation tools. The real question for you isn't whether these features exist, it's whether they're worth the background resource use that comes bundled with them. Since that background workload manager keeps running regardless of what you've toggled off in settings, your most practical options right now are ending that process manually after each restart, checking whether your specific manufacturer offers its own control panel toggle, or digging into your group policy editor under computer configuration, administrative templates, Windows components, and the Windows AI section, where more granular controls may be available depending on your Windows edition. If you've got a processor that technically has an NPU but falls short of that 40 TOPS line, which describes most Intel Core Ultra Series 1 chips, and the vast majority of 12th and 13th generation Intel processors with early, lower power NPU blocks, you're stuck in limbo. Your task manager won't show an NPU counter at all, every Copilot Plus feature stays fully locked, and yet your chip still has AI-capable silicon that Windows simply refuses to count. You get some of the overhead without any of the payoff. And if you're on an older machine entirely, a desktop running a standard processor from before the AI PC era, or a laptop with a 10th, 11th, or 12th generation Intel chip with no NPU block at all, none of this touches you directly. No Copilot Plus features will ever appear. Windows 11 behaves exactly as it always has. The only real change is that every update still ships with feature code, sitting dormant on your machine, code that will simply never activate. Whichever category you land in, there's one useful step everyone should take today. Open Settings, go to Privacy and Security, and scroll down to the AI features and Copilot sections. Take a look at what's actually switched on. Turn off anything you never consciously chose to enable. If you're on qualifying hardware, double-check your recall snapshot settings. Even if you're fairly sure you already disabled it, confirm whether Click to Do is active, and make sure studio effects only run when you actually want them running. And on any Windows 11 machine, regardless of hardware, head into Settings, then Personalization, then Taskbar, and turn off the Copilot button if you don't use it. That button isn't passive. It takes up space and reaches out to cloud services every single time it loads. Where does this actually go from here? Before this internal course correction became public, the trajectory was obvious. More features locked behind the NPU wall on a regular cadence, a growing AI stack, Windows 10's end of support pushing more people toward Windows 11, and the entire PC industry building hardware, specifically around that 40 TOPS threshold. It looked like a future where owning an NPU wasn't optional if you wanted the full Windows experience, and everyone without one was quietly downgraded to second-tier status on their own machine. The reversal we're seeing now adds real uncertainty to that path. Microsoft scaling back Copilot buttons in built-in apps and privately acknowledging that recall didn't land the way it hoped suggests the wall isn't going to keep growing at the same pace it was. It's AI runtime shifting from NPU exclusive to also supporting GPUs. And CPUs suggests Microsoft has recognized that tying features to hardware most of its user base doesn't own creates more fragmentation than it solves. But Microsoft also can't fully walk this back overnight. The Copilot Plus brand exists. The marketing exists. The premium pricing built around it exists. Manufacturer partners built entire product lines betting on that 40 TOPS threshold. Unwinding all of that cleanly isn't something a company this size does in a single update cycle. The most likely outcome, based on everything that's surfaced so far, is a middle ground. NPU-accelerated versions of features will keep shipping to qualifying hardware, because that hardware now genuinely exists at scale, and those features do run better on it. But GPU-accelerated versions of more features will likely start reaching the broader Windows 11 install base too, softening the sharp line that currently separates Copilot Plus owners from everyone else. Features that were locked behind the NPU purely as a marketing decision rather than a hard technical necessity will probably loosen up over time. Features where a dedicated NPU genuinely makes a meaningful difference in the experience may stay gated. That task manager, NPU graph, isn't disappearing. The hardware investment the entire industry made isn't disappearing either. What's likely to soften is how rigid the line stays between those who have it and those who don't. For right now, the most useful thing you can do is understand exactly what sits inside your own machine. Open Task Manager, check the Performance tab, and if an NPU shows up, look up your exact processor model and confirm whether it actually clears that 40 tops bar. If it does, you're running background AI processes and have access to Copilot Plus features whether you use them or not, so it's worth deciding deliberately what stays on. If no NPU shows up, or one shows up below the threshold, you're not missing out on some transformative shift in how you use your computer. You're missing a feature set that Microsoft has partially admitted, behind closed doors, didn't work out the way it expected. The NPU itself is real hardware doing real work, and the software built for it has genuine capability. But where Microsoft drew this line, and how it drew it, was as much a business decision as an engineering one, and the pushback that's pulled the company back toward the center is one of the clearest signals the market has sent in years. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe to Nolan Tech, and turn on notifications so you never miss future tech videos. So tell me, what's the first thing you're going to check in your own settings after watching this? And did your task manager have an NPU graph you never noticed before?